getting it all, getting your ducks in a row, and then you can get on with it.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
this is kind of weird, actually, isn't it? Because I think it's about 3 years since I sent you the very first demo of Blood Makes Noise.
I think that's right, because as I was scrambling looking for your email, I was like 2018 was popping up, 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh yeah, we go back quite a ways.
Yeah. The weird thing for me is, I mean, I've got to tell you this story. When your message on Facebook first arrived, I'd sent an email to your management, and the Facebook message was kind of like oh well, why not, just a shot in the dark, shot to nothing. And I do stand up, and I'd been out playing a comedy show.
Oh really?
Yeah.
You do stand up.
And I came back home. I sat on myself, and it's about like 11 at night or something, and just letting the adrenaline fade away. And my phone vibrated, and I looked, and I thought, I don't recognize that symbol. So I opened it, and it was the message from you. And I was,
oh, the one that said it put me in a really good mood.
yes,
Yeah, that I really liked. Yeah.
Well, believe
Yes.
it or not, I believe it or not, this is quite
Yeah.
sad, so I apologize. Right, I've got a screenshot of that conversation, and it is framed in my room.
Oh, good. That's great. Oh, that's good.
It's this really cute little frame, and I printed it up. I mean, when I read that, I was just, I was absolutely blown away. I couldn't believe it, and
Oh, good.
you would, I mean, you were just, like, you've been so easy to deal with. I mean, a lot of people, during we put the album out and everything else, and people have been like, how the hell do you end up working with Suzanne Vega? And I just kind of said, well, just sent her a message. That was it. It's been really easy.
Well, I'm not that easy for everybody. I get lots of messages every day, and some I respond to, and some I don't, and some I block and remove. So, but I meant what I said. I mean, it's one of those things. It's instinctive.
Yeah.
I listen to covers, and I listen to interpolations, and it hits me right away. Either I'm like, yeah, I love this, or it's like, whoa, never in a million years. So it's one pile or the other, and that's the pile you fell into.
Oh, well, that's great. So there's
Yeah.
two piles. There is the, oh my God, you've created something completely new with my music. That's cool. And the, what have you done to my song?
Well, the thing is, even the worst ones, the original song still exists. But yeah, there's times where you just know immediately, no, there's just no way. There's no way that's ever coming out. But but no, I liked it, and I thought, I mean, it's not the first time I've been covered by a thrash metal band.
Right.
Because back in the day, I don't know what the Lemonheads are considered now, but when the Lemonheads made their cover of Luca, they
Yes.
were considered a thrash metal band, and so they did Luca, and I thought that was great. I thought it was a really good, really valid interpretation of the song, and I thought it was great. So I really like your version.
Oh, well, I really like that version as well.
Of Blood Makes Noise. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I've I mean, I've, as you know, been a fan for many years, and and obviously, as you've seen from the thanks list that we posted the other day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that
was a surprise, actually. I was thinking, how did I get onto that list? I mean, that was a long time ago.
1988.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Well, how it happened was, I worked in a record shop, as musicians tend to do, and I worked in a record shop, and I quit the job when I signed the record deal with a band. But for those, I was there about 9 months a year, and in that time, obviously listening to music all day, and Solitude Standing was in the UK top 20 albums. So we'd be playing tracks all day, and
Yeah.
and I just there's this young kind of like 16-year-old metal kid, but music's music.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like, if it moves you, it moves you. So I just really got into solitude standing. So I had my staff discount, so I bought the CD with my staff discount, and then I bought the first album with my staff discount. I still have those 2 original CDs.
Oh, cool.
And then we signed to a label, and off I went. And but I was, I've always been a fan. I've always kept an eye on your career. And I think I saw you in Basingstoke doing
That's
99.9.
likely. Oh, yeah.
There was just 2 of you.
Oh.
There was you and a guy.
Oh, maybe it was me and Mikey probably on bass.
But it was
it in 1992? Really?
Oh Lord, no. No. We're talking
Much
probably
later.
about 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh yeah, so it's me and Jerry Leonard. Yeah.
Right. That was amazing. I absolutely loved it.
Oh, good.
It was great.
Yeah, Jerry does a great version of Blood Makes Noise. Jerry really kind of takes that out there. We worked out an arrangement that just is pretty killer. But we've had many different versions over the years, depending on who I'm touring with.
Yeah, and you have very many different versions of the band, as it were.
Yeah.
When you're looking at the very early stages of maybe doing something, or it was like an anniversary coming up, how do you start looking and thinking, right, how do I want to do this? Or is it more a case of, well, I've got these people around me who I know and I'd like to use them? Or how does it all come together?
I hate to be so prosaic, but it all really comes down to what I can afford at any given moment.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing because my career didn't really follow what most careers do. My career started in 1985, for real. I had been writing songs and playing the folk circuit pretty much for 10 years before that. But in 1985, I hit really big. So from 1985 to 1990, I had a full band, I had a full crew, I had 2 tour buses, I had trucks, I had all kinds of, it was like, it was the rock and roll life. We had, sleeper buses, and it was awesome. And I thought, oh, wow, this is going to continue forever. Well, it doesn't. It doesn't always continue forever. So as time has gone on, I've learned to tour. For 10 years, I toured with Mike Viseglia on bass. We had a really interesting version of Blood Makes Noise back then because it was just bass and voice,
Wow.
Which was very minimal.
Yeah.
And really kind of cool and effective in its own way. And then later I started to tour with Jerry Leonard, who had been on tour with David Bowie. He was David Bowie's musical director for years, and he's very adept at rock and roll, and he can play all kinds of styles. So we worked out that version of Blood Makes Noise. But here, what it really comes down to is, can I afford the band or not? Yeah. So if I'm out doing festivals, in June and July, and sort of doing stuff like, I don't know, Isle of Wight and that kind of thing, it's just going to be me and one other person usually. But if it's an anniversary tour and we're playing bigger venues, I've brought the whole band, which it's always really fun. And especially if you can include a couple of guys who actually played on the album, like Mikey has been with me since Solitude Standing. So I always ask him to come out on tour because he's great and the fans love it. And he's like, it's still there in his DNA.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Yeah. And like you say, I think there's certain fans get a huge buzz from that as well, knowing that it's the original dude.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what us fans are like. I think I came. Well, I saw you in Leeds. Would have been two years ago, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Seems
yeah.
likely. I tour the UK constantly. I mean, I think it's probably I think I've toured the UK more than I've toured the US for sure. I've played, yeah, I'm always touring the UK.
Yeah, and you seem to have, you know, your popularity, certainly within the UK. I mean, you know, it's all very well for me to say, I'm sure you'll correct me, but it always seems to have remained pretty solid. You know, you've always had a kind of solid base, and or the way you're smiling, are you going to tell me about the lean years?
Well, no, I'd say overall you're correct. I've had a 1 or 2 years where I got into bad graces with press. You know, the music press decided I was really boring for a while, or you know, they could be kind of vicious. And there were a couple of years where that was going on. But you know, that's okay. We have a long-standing relationship, and there's bound to be a few bumps. So overall, I'm very happy with the UK.
Well, that runs true with some fans as well. I remember seeing Days of Open Hand tour in Newcastle, and you played, I think, probably two or three songs, and then you spoke to the audience. Now, moi, I love it when people speak to the audience. It's what I do. It's what I fell in love with. Fish from Marillion, who's the greatest raconteur I've ever met, and he's great at it. And I saw him doing it as a teenager, and I thought, I want to do that. I want to make between songs fun as well.
Yeah,
And we did about three songs, and you started explaining what the next song was about, and some idiot in the crowd just went, "Get on with it!" And so you
yeah,
went, and so you just went, "Okay," and that was it. And I was just like, I'm gonna kill that guy if I ever meet him.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, that has happened from time to time. From time to time, I've gotten ruder comments than that.
Yeah.
Sometimes in Australia, you know. So you just have to, you know, if I wasn't in the mood to get on with it, I wouldn't have. You know, I would have dug in my heels and made the story even longer.
Yeah.
But I was probably in the mood to just say, okay, fine. If you're not being entertained, I will get on with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, I like to talk. I think it's good for a show to talk in between the songs, and sometimes jokey, sometimes not. But I always hate it when I go to see someone sing and all they do is sing. You know, I could have stayed home for that. I
Yeah.
don't really, I know the song. You know, if
Yes.
I'm there, it's pretty much guaranteed I know a lot of the material. So you kind of want to feel like, who is this person?
Yeah, you want more. You want more from the experience, and that's
Yeah,
why you're there.
yeah.
You seem very comfortable between songs. Has that always been the case, or is it like everything? Is it something that basically you had to learn?
Oh yeah, it's something I had to learn a lot. In the very beginning, I mean, you know, the early years of my club life were I was rejected a lot. I was you know, 1976, I went out and started doing auditions. I got a couple of church basement type things, but when I actually went to the village and tried to get an actual professional gig, I was turned down a lot.
Mm.
And I was very nervous. I was very shy. I didn't know what to say. Um, I was intimidated by guys who would, you know, be kind of sitting in the front row, shouting comments. You know, these are like open mic nights,
Yeah.
you know, that sort of thing. So it took a long time to figure out what to say, how to say it, not to talk too much, not to say two things that were too personal. For me, not to drink before I go on stage,
Good
which
idea.
made all my timing would go haywire if I had even a half a drink.
Yeah.
It was a nightmare. So I said, okay, no drinking before the show. And all of that took a while to learn.
Yeah, and that's that. But that's a that's a great lesson to learn very early. Is don't have a drink. You know,
I think for some people it works. I'd seen many people at Folk City who would, you know, drink and drink and drink and drink on stage. And sometimes it really made everything loose and funny. But for me, it wasn't loose and funny. It was like, it got really weird. So,
yeah,
and not
yeah.
in a
I
good
mean,
way.
in comedy, it's generally the general rule is try not to, because you will then rely on it, and before you know it, you're an alcoholic. You know.
Yeah.
It,
Well, you can still become an alcoholic, but just don't do it before the show. You know, you can still, you can still drink after the show. But I just found it affected my timing, which was everything. You know,
yeah.
a good, perfectly placed pause could really work wonders at times. But if you're drunk or drinking, you don't know when. You know, you don't know when to stop talking, and you don't know when to begin again. So it all kind of goes out the window.
Yeah, no, I mean the relationship between alcohol and creativity, I've always thought is not a great one. I mean, I've done recording sessions after having a few drinks, and then you play it back when you're sober and go, can we never ever do that again, please?
Well, my first Mac producers tried that with me. They were like, "Oh, you know, Susan's having." I was always having trouble with my vocals, and so they were like, "Oh, let's give her some wine, and it'll loosen her up. You know, she'll have a good time." And it just made me very sodden, you know. And then I fell asleep, and so they were like, "Okay, well, we won't do that again."
Yeah,
You know,
it's not getting the greatest performance out of you.
yeah,
Yeah, it's yeah, it's just a bad idea in general. Basically, it's a terrible idea. But
yeah. You don't drink and go on stage. You don't drink and go do an interview or go in front of a camera. You know, that's the other thing, is that it just, you know, it's just bad form.
yes, yeah.
I,
Well, I always think as well that there's within the entertainment industry, it's normalized being drunk at work. It's okay. It's
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
You know,
Yes, that's true.
and it's kind of like, well, you know, if you are at work, you probably should show a degree of professionalism at some point. You know,
Yeah.
um,
No, but you're absolutely right. I mean, a club is a great place to drink. I mean, no doubt about that.
yeah, yeah. Well, I know it's being a stand-up and spending a lot of time in them. It's just something that you have to try and avoid, really. You know, it's just it's not an idea, and like anything, it just becomes a habit. But when you speaking of your voice, there, do you ever have voice problems? Are you know, do you? I mean, now presumably you know your voice inside out. You know what you can do, what you can't do, what you try, you know, what you have to avoid. Is there a particular regime, or you know that you or is it
Oh,
just
doesn't that sound fancy? A regime. No, I
well,
did when I
you
was
know, us
younger.
Brits, that's what we're all about, making things that aren't fancy sound fancy.
Okay. Oh, I think I guess that's probably true. Um, yeah, I don't really. I eat one or two cough drops before I go on stage. And that does it for me. That warms up my voice and it makes it feel good. And then after that, I know how to work the microphone now, which I didn't when I was younger.
Yeah.
But I'd say in the 80s is when I really had the most trouble with my voice. I had a full-on band.
Yeah.
I was working constantly, sometimes two shows a night in 1987, two full shows,
Wow.
and straining to hear myself above the band. And my voice was very thin then, and I wasn't physically fit. I didn't really work out or do anything like that.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, is that if I am fit, if I do some kind of aerobics during the day, I can breathe better and I sing better.
Yeah.
So if I'm in a very stressed situation, I try to get myself to the gym in the afternoon and do a bit on the elliptical machine and just get my blood. I have very low blood pressure, so if I can get it all up, that helps me to get it open,
Yeah.
and then I can project.
Yeah. That's really interesting because you have such a soft, rich voice, but and your only warm ups are a couple of cough drops. I am seething with jealousy here.
Sorry. Oh well.
Honestly.
Yeah. No, I mean, maybe it will change as I get older, but
Oh, it's
yeah,
okay. You're
that's
just
how it
trying to
is
make
now.
you
And the
feel
other thing
better
is,
now.
I travel with really good sound engineers who really know how to work my voice. They know where to place it. And when I work with Jerry, he makes sure that the arrangements leave a little window for my voice to really pop through.
Great.
So I don't strain as much
Yeah.
as I used to, because Jerry kind of really listens out for that. If there's anything competing with where the vocal ought to be, then he'll take it away.
Yeah.
You know, and that really works wonders.
Thing is, as well, I would imagine with I mean, it's just everybody's there to hear your voice. You know, that makes complete sense for somebody who's working on the arrangements to go, look, you know, the voice is the start. Give it some room to breathe, and so people can really hear it. And that's the knock-on effect for you is like you say, you're not howling over a band.
Yeah.
Well, oh, let's swap roles just for one show. Yeah, I mean, I'm always having problems with mine. Do you do warm downs at all?
Warm downs or
Yeah.
warm ups? We call them
Oh, no,
warm ups here.
I do both.
Oh,
Warm ups, do the
and
show,
then warm down.
warm downs, like you do, like you should do after exercise. It's like
Yeah, when you
another
cool off.
muscle.
No, that I must say that never occurred to me. No, I have a couple of glasses of vodka, and that cools everything off pretty well. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
So,
that's a new development. I mean, I never used to do them, but apparently now the thing is warm downs,
oh,
and that is really really difficult, because you know what it's like after a show. You know, straight away there's there's going to be a bunch of people who want to talk to you, but you've
yeah.
also got to get to the dressing room. You've got to sit down and just kind of decompress from the gig. No,
Well,
not many.
this makes sense when I hear your vocals. I mean, that is what you're doing there is a real technique. It's a very different effect than what I'm doing. I'm trying to, it's just a different thing. I think if I were doing what you were doing, I would need all of that support.
Well, that's very kind of you. I think the mistake, one of the mistakes I made was the first singing teacher that I ever had. I'm an actual tenor, and she was an opera singer, and she wanted to get me into her opera group. And I said, look, you've heard the music I do. I'm really, opera's not my thing. Okay, it's like the opposite.
Yeah.
It's like classic rap. It's people just singing, telling a
Oh, it could
story.
work.
you know and
I
so
kind of like it. I like the thought of it. I like the idea of it. Somewhere in the universe there's a place for that.
Yes.
For that opera.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And she taught me, and she tried to help me with my voice, but the techniques she gave me was for singing opera. And for years, for years I was banging out thrash metal with using an operatic technique. And as I've got older, my singing teacher now, who teaches rock singing, is like, first time I was there, she was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here. It is. It's using your voice as an instrument. There's just something about it. I think that it's. Do you ever still find yourself, when you're performing songs that you've performed so many times, do you ever find yourself still maybe getting lost in the music, or experiencing something when you're performing that song that you haven't experienced for a long time? I'm interested as to maybe what goes through your mind, what you get out of it, or is it more just I want to deliver the song as best I can for the audience, and that's the focus?
Yeah, it's a mixture. There are certain songs that always hit me, that I feel each time I sing them. And fortunately for me, Tom's Diner and Luca and Blood Makes Noise are those. Wow. Are some of those. Caramel also. So every time I sing them, I still feel them. There's other songs that, like The Queen and the Soldier. I like The Queen and the Soldier, but because it's so narrative and it's so long, there are times where my mind will occasionally wander, and then I get into trouble because I've got he and she, and then I switch them, or I confuse them, or I can't remember. I repeat the verse. Some weird thing happens. So I try and keep my mind on it. But the other thing is that we very often will switch up the set list. We'll create a beginning, we'll create an end, and then there'll be a section in the middle where there's like a little mini set of songs that swap out, songs that change, songs that we'll do one or then we'll do the other. And I find that really helpful to refresh the whole idea of the set.
Yes, yeah. There's nothing worse than getting into a set that you're familiar with, because you start going in. Well, I start going into autopilot. That's
Yeah.
what I have to avoid. And like you were saying about the Queen and the Soldier there, exactly that. You know, it's like I find myself in an instrumental part in a song and suddenly think, oh shit, where am I?
Yes. Yeah, I've had that. I've had that. I mean, the other funny thing is you don't really know beforehand what kind of show you're going to have. You know, you can feel like hell. You can feel sick physically sometimes, and decide, no, I'm going to do the show, and then suddenly it something wonderful happens, and you feel great. And then you can be fit, you can be healthy, you can think, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to give it my best, and some crazy thing will happen. Something will fall flat, or you know, your brain goes weird and suddenly you can't remember something that you know really well, or something happens in the audience. So that's why it's live. You know, that's why we
Yeah.
love live music and live theater, because it's this crazy chemistry between yourself, your work, and the audience, who's come with their own expectations. And there's always that weird spark that could go off at any time.
Yeah, and it's the old saying, isn't it? It's the recycling of energy. It's the energy that you bring and your music brings, and that goes out into the audience, and the audience absorb that energy, and then they chuck a load of energy back at you, that because they're enjoying what they're doing. And it's that cycle. You know, you're all involved in it. And speaking of the Queen and the Soldier, you played that the last time I saw you in Leeds, and I have to say,
Did something happen?
I burst into tears.
Oh,
I
oh,
burst
that's
into tears.
nice.
I hadn't heard that song for a long time, and I think it's one of those songs that when you haven't heard it for a long time and then you hear it again, it knocks you over all over again.
Thank
Um,
you.
but well, it's you know yeah. I mean, I've shared that with a lot of my friends who are into like metal and stuff like that, because there is almost like a structure to it, that it's almost like a prog rock slash metal chick. You know, you could adapt that. Don't worry, it's safe. I'm going to leave it alone.
Why didn't you adapt it? You could do a cover version of it.
Yeah. that might not go down as well as Blood Maid's Noise.
Right.
Um,
But I know what you mean. There's sort of an archetype there, you know, this is sort of this queen and the power struggle, and you know, that I get it.
do you ever go back to material, or, and it doesn't have to be like years ago or anything else, but you go back and you almost you rediscover one of your own songs and think, wow, that's actually, that's really good. That's better than I ever thought it was. After an elapse of time. Does that ever happen, or is it more a case of like, no, there's certain tunes I just rather move away from?
It's more often the latter, where I go back, like say I'm doing a 25th anniversary of an album, and I'll go back and I'll go, wow, that's a really weird song. What was I thinking? Uh, so that happens more often. I still do them, especially if it's on Solitude Standing or the first album. The first album I think was pretty solid. Second album, there were a couple of songs that I probably, if I were to do them today, I probably would have left them off. But the audience knows them. It's not weird to the audience. So I just kind of do it. The song is really, I don't take a break from it, because
Yeah, I know. I get that. I get that. It's
I keep doing it.
and with Solitude Standing, I mean, I that was the album that I first heard of yours, and I think I nicked a lyric off it. So this is so now I'm going to admit this. Okay, in 1988, I ripped you off. I stole one of your lyrics. There's a
What'd you do? What was it? You owe
There's
me big time, buddy.
it was the it yeah it's nothing it was simply the crust of the meaning. I had never ever
Oh,
heard
okay.
I'd never heard that phrase before, and I just fell in love with it. Instantly, you know, I could visualize, you know, you can just crust. It was just like it was just the perfect word, and I was writing a song. I was writing a song, and I was just like, oh my god, I know what fits in here. Yeah, dare I do it? And it's like
Oh,
oh,
all
she'll.
right.
I was like, oh, you know, there I was,
I'm
like
proud of
18,
you.
you know, there I was, 18, 19 years old. Oh, she'll never know. And here we are.
And it's true.
Yeah,
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 and it's true. I never would have known the crust
yeah.
of the meaning. So did anybody ever call you out on it?
No,
It's a
never.
perfect phrase to steal because it's still it's not it's not something it's not like it hasn't become a cliche, for example. It's not
Yeah,
something everybody uses.
yeah.
It might sound vaguely familiar to someone, but it still is what it means, you know.
But it jumped out at
So
me at the time, and I just thought
well done.
that's just a beautiful phrase.
Thanks.
Do you play with words at all? Do you find yourself like writing little phrases down here and there, and just keeping an eye on words that interest you and stuff like that? I'm interested to, you know, the lyrical process is
I do.
yeah,
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 especially if I'm in a situation or in a mood where I find that there's a flow starting to happen, or that words are sounding similar to describe a certain scene or situation, or there's a bit of alliteration, just as I had just done in that previous phase.
yeah,
Or if words start to rhyme within the meaning or the scene that I'm seeing in my mind. Then I start to write it down because I feel those are potent moments where you have when the language actually starts to perform. You know, the
yeah.
words in your mind start to sort of dance and act differently than they do in normal speech. So I'll think, oh, that's something I need to jot down. So I do that on my phone now, or I'll do it on I keep both a notebook, and I keep notes on my phone.
Yeah, I do exactly the same, and I think you're absolutely right. It's what that really rang true for me, because when you say when words are starting to dance, it's like it's like you're hearing words in a particular environment that you may not have. They kind of ring true in a particular
Yeah,
phrase in a particular way,
yeah,
especially in conversation with people and in real life situations. Words get used in a real, you know, practical way, in ways you may not have heard before. um
yeah.
you know, I mean,
The other interesting thing I found is that it's sometimes the deeper the situation, the more intense the language gets. You know, if you're at a funeral, or if you're at if you're witnessing something horrible on the news, or if you love somebody deeply, you know, the language changes and sort of becomes pressurized in a way. And the more you try and get to the truth of whatever it is you're trying to express, which is usually difficult, the more the language seems to condense itself. That's what I've observed.
yeah, well, without a doubt. And do you try and finish a song in one sitting? Is there any particular, or is it just kind of like here and there, and you know, whatever?
You know, I think it's probably better when you do, but I don't these days. I just I'm gathering up a lot of material from a lot of different sources. You know, here in America, there's been a lot to to think about and to look at, and you know, these images that we're seeing on the news and just everywhere. Um, so I'm just sort of compiling things. It
Yeah,
takes kind of energy that I don't have. You know, I'm working on a few projects at once, so I sort of I feel I have to kind of uh, use my time well. So I'm not in the songwriting mode right now, but I will probably have a whole backlog of stuff. And I enjoy that. I enjoy going back through things. I know, I think Bob Dylan said something like, "There's nothing sadder than an old song that you were working on that tries to return." You know, whereas I don't agree with that at all. I feel like great. The more bits you have of old songs that didn't quite work out, then you've got more options for a new song.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
And so you've got a lot going at the moment. You're not songwriting. Is that the way you like it, to be challenged in different areas? Because obviously you've branched out over the last few years, and sort of, would you say are you acting? Would we call it acting?
You can try to call it acting. I don't know that I've ever been praised for my actual acting. So, I've been praised for having a sardonic presence on stage by the New York Times. So we like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I noticed that he stopped short of saying I was any kind of actor. So, so, so I won't brag about that. But I did do a film of the play that I wrote, and I played the part myself, and we are done with it now. So now we're trying to see, is it going to be accepted in a film festival? We'll see what happens there. I have my fingers crossed. We'll have to see what happens with this film of the play. But because I've spent so much time on the play, it's a play of Carson McCullers, the author. I made an album of the songs from the play that came out in 2016.
Yeah.
So I am a little edgy and ready to get back to what I really love, to more what I feel I'm good at, which is songwriting, and then hopefully touring when we can get to the end of this pandemic.
Yeah, it's not great. We had a whole world tour planned for 2020, so our new album's world tour consists of 4 shows so far.
Yeah.
And unfortunately not in 4 corners of the world either. But so whilst you're enjoying what you're doing at the moment, and it requires a different skill set as well. What was the acting in the movie like? How was that as an experience?
Very pressured, very intense. It was very low budget. And so it was meant to be kind of a document of the play. That wasn't an archival capture. When I did the play in 2018, it was very long. It was an hour and 45 minutes, which for a one-woman show is very, very long. Yeah. So I wanted to do a shortened version that was a little edgier than what we had in the archival captures. So I had to practice and it had been a year and a half since I'd done the part. So in the morning I had to get up and run through the scenes and memorize the language again. Yeah. It was completely different experience, sort of a cross between being in a play and being in a music video, where you have to sort of, you see you're just, basically I did what I was told to do, and I did it as best as I could. I'm a bit sorry now that I didn't see the dailies, because if I had known what my face was doing, I would have probably tried to put a little more animation in my face. But I didn't. I thought, oh, it's a film. They'll see what I'm doing. They'll see what I mean.
Yeah.
But actually, film acting is its own thing. You can't overplay, but you can't just kind of act like I'm talking to you now.
Yeah.
It really does require a bit of technique, which I think if I were to do it now, it would be a different film, but we're not going to do it again. So.
Well, we can always blame the director and say that there was plenty of opportunity to say, Suzanne, love, give me more.
Yes, that's true, and he's such a nice guy. And in fact, he very rarely did that. If anything, it was the opposite. It was like, slow it down, really feel her pain, which is not hard for me to do. I can do things slowly, and I can be very introspective. So I did notice that was where his direction tended to take me, was more like, okay, just slow the whole thing down, which almost nobody ever says that to me.
Well, I that must have been a refreshing change, but I have to say that a cross between a play and a music video, that sounds like the worst of both worlds.
Oh, no, plays are wonderful. Plays are so great. I nearly majored in theater in college. I majored in English literature, but I had enough credits to minor in theater. And I studied all kinds of theater. I took some of the acting classes. I took a lot of the tech classes. I learned about costume design and lighting and sets. And I love it. I love the stage. I guess that's really what it is. I love the stage. So it's really being at home during this pandemic is like super frustrating. I mean, the good news is that I love my husband, I love my dog, and we have a very beautiful and entertaining life here. We keep each other laughing, which is great. And but I miss the road, and I miss the stage.
Yeah, I absolutely, completely agree with that. I live on my own in a 2-bedroom flat in London.
Oh,
I had my 50th birthday on my own on Facebook.
aw,
Yeah, had a Facebook Live birthday party. Um,
oh,
but
so did I, sort of. I did a little show for my birthday.
oh, cool.
Uh, yeah, and we had so many technical problems. I just ended up doing 4 songs and then saying thanks. Thanks for coming. My daughter was calling my husband to tell him that the microphone wasn't turned up enough and we needed more sound. And
Yeah.
then other people kept writing in to say, why is your husband doing the dishes? Can't he wait till later? I mean, it was it was very there's a lot of audience participation. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
But it was fun. I mean, it was once in a hopefully a once in a lifetime kind of
Yeah,
happening.
hopefully.
Hopefully.
You are you're a bit of a conundrum because you strike me as a naturally um introspective, shy person, but
Yeah.
you love the stage, you
Hmm.
love being out there and being performing. And obviously you went through all of those years of putting up with the, guys shouting out in the front row and everything to do what you do. So there must have been that drive and that determination
Yeah.
was stronger than what you knew was holding you back, and you just had to get over it.
Yeah. Yes, that's true. Yeah, I overcame a lot to finally become, I hate the word comfortable on stage, because really stage is really no place to be comfortable. I mean, a stage is a place to really give your best. And but I know what you mean. And I do feel, I feel at home there. um but yeah, I had to work on it. I had to, for a while in the very beginning, it made me angry to be on stage. I felt like, well, who are these people? Why do I have to be entertaining? I don't feel entertaining, and this is very difficult for me. So I would come off stage and be really pissed. And so then, but then you have to. I just had to get over it, because it's
Yeah.
like, if you're going to put yourself on a stage, then you better learn to be entertaining. You have to learn to control what it is you're putting out there, um, to a degree. Um, and I just kept going back and going back, through rejections and through my own, sorry, I'm getting excited now. I'm sort of, words are starting to spill ahead of themselves. I kept a gig book, and I would take notes as to
Good
what
idea.
I wore, what I sang, what the audience did, what worked about the night, what didn't work about the night. I
Wow.
was very analytic about it. So if I wore the wrong thing, for example, I learned to cover myself. I learned to dress. I covered myself pretty much from my neck down to my ankles. I was going to wear a mini skirt or a little dress. I didn't want them thinking about that. I wanted them
Yeah.
to think about the lyrics.
Yes.
So I figured out how to present myself in a way that I could all just come out in a natural way.
Yeah.
And I worked on it diligently and very analytically.
And there is no excuse. There's no getting around hard work. Ultimately, whatever it
Yep.
is, you've got to put the hours and you've got to do the time. And listening to you describe that is quite amazing, because what you've just described is the trajectory and all of those tools that you use. That's exactly how you start out as a stand-up,
Oh,
and the
I can
exact
imagine.
yeah,
Yeah.
the exact same methods. Record the show, listen back to the show. What did they laugh at? What didn't they laugh at? What did you do well? What didn't you do well? And
Yeah.
and each time take it back. Although I always, I'm Mr. ADHD, so I used to record shows and I'd make vocal notes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But pretty much a very, very similar process, and it's still what I say to stand-ups now, and it's like, I say, how can you possibly go home and learn from that gig
Yeah.
just from the performance? You need to hear what it was like for the audience, and the amount of times that I would listen back to a gig and think, I'd come home and think, yeah, it was all right, it wasn't that good, and then I'd listen back and go, oh, this went better than I remember.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah, and but
That's what you want.
it is that you've just got to keep pushing through and keep pushing through, and presumably that made, that's made a difference to your life in general, because all of these, all these skills we pick up on, that we pick up to use on the stage, and a lot of it is just useful in real life, for dealing with particular situations where you may feel uncomfortable. And I know I kind of think sometimes I just kind of slip into the old I'm just going to slip into my performing suit while no one's listening. And just I guess it's it's just one big mask, isn't it? Like the masks that we wear in society, and that everybody has to a certain extent. You kind of build a persona for the stage.
Yeah. I think I
You
probably have over time, although the persona that I have on stage is like the real Suzanne. I think in real life, I probably talk more. I'm more talkative under certain conditions than I do on stage. But yeah, I suppose you're right. But it's I think it's helpful to remember that people are not always your friend. It's some of the anecdotes that I tell on stage are things that I've said a lot over time, and people come away going, "Oh, that's so personal." And actually, it isn't really, because it's the same anecdote that I've been telling pretty much for most of my career. But I tell it because I know it works, and because I know they can relate, and because it's something everyone feels. Um, and I've worked it out so that I'm not revealing anything I don't want revealed. But it has the flavor and feel of something that is very intimate.
Yeah, and funnily enough, people can take that all sorts of different ways. Some people are like, oh, that was so personal, that was so touching. How good of them to reveal that part of themselves. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Whereas other people would be like, oh, too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it,
Exactly.
well, especially in the UK, as I'm sure you're aware.
Yeah.
Oh, personal feelings, don't talk about those.
Okay.
We'd really rather you didn't.
Yeah.
But it's do you, and this is there's no right answer, but I got to interview eventually. I got to interview Fish from Marillion, who was the first band I ever saw live, and it was hilarious. We had a photo taken in the hotel lobby, and it looks like father and son. I mean, he's
Really?
he's 6'5" and I'm
I
5'4".
know.
Well,
Did
yes.
he mention to you that we had a night drinking together?
Well, I remember at the time. This was like 80s, 90s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember you two being in the same sphere at the same time, because I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, these two artists who I absolutely love are in, what's going on here? What did
Yeah,
they
I'm
on?
trying to remember how we met, but I remember we were definitely at the bar together, and we were drinking what he called depth chargers, which is a shot glass of Drambuie and a glass of Guinness or something like that. You sort of
Yeah.
send it shooting to the bottom of the glass and then drink both of it, which they taste wonderful. So I had a few of those, and then somehow we all ended up in his room, like on the floor. The one to ask really is Mikey, who I think my bass player. And I got this wonderful letter from him in the morning that he wrote out and left with the front desk, which I have in my scrapbook of letters.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. It really was. It was a very fun and funny night. Just one of those things that happen on tour where you're like, whoa, how did that happen? You know, the next
Yeah,
day. But
it's amazing the amount of times that you can end up in the same hotel and as like another band, and you're completely unaware of it. Or
yeah,
there's people from other areas of entertainment. The amount of times that bands and that we all bump into each
well,
other.
he's so big and he's so sort of magnanimous. And I think we were all at the bar. And so I think he's just sort of scooped me up as part of his entourage. And then we just ended up sort of having this repartee, and we ended up just like drinking for hours.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, when I was chatting to him, he came up with something that really surprised me and made me think. Um, he said look, I'm just about to start work on my last ever album, and that's it. I'm retiring. I'm done.
Mm, mm.
And as we were talking, he's had vocal problems all his life, and I think part of the retirement is I just don't want to, I can't be bothered with the stress anymore. And and he said, I genuinely feel that I'm a writer who can sing. I am not a singer who can write. And when he
Yeah.
said that, it was like a light bulb went off in my head, and I was like, that's me. That is
Oh,
absolutely me. I don't see myself as a singer. I see myself more as a writer that can sing. And it's like it's the writing that's important, and the rest is the vehicle. How does that work for you?
yeah. I feel that I'm a writer
Right.
that that had to learn to sing. Uh, I mean, I enjoyed singing. I always did. I'm the oldest of 4 children, so I sang to my brothers and sisters when we were growing up, and that's the kind of voice I still have. You know, that kind of voice that you sing to kids with. Um,
Put that on the poster.
yeah, that'll bring them in.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I always felt that whatever I had that was special, that whatever I had that was a gift, was in the songwriting. The first few songs I wrote, I thought, oh, I think I have something here that's different than what I've already heard. So I kept at it, you know. And there's something about songs in particular, the repetition. I always was attracted to poems and the idea of magic and incantations and even religious rituals. I'm a Buddhist, and so I chant, and so I chant in the morning, I chant in the evening. So things that have that sort of repetition it's very attractive to me. So that's in particular the kind of writing that I like.
And has Buddhism helped you with your ability to deal with the industry that you're in, or has it been more of a kind of life thing, and it's just
Oh, it's a life thing. It's helped me through all kinds of situations. I started when I was 16. There was about 13 years in between then and now where I kind of took a break, where I didn't practice in any sort of organized way. I mean, obviously, in moments of great, I chanted through childbirth because that's what one does. That's when
yeah.
you find prayer again. So, but it's been there through every part of my life, and seen me through highs and lows, and it really, really does keep things in perspective for me.
And that must have been incredibly useful whilst we're going through everything that we're going through at the moment.
Yes. Oh, very much. Yeah. Sure.
It has been a very kind of frustrating time that we've been through as well. um and I've discovered things about some of my friends that I would never have guessed. I mean, it's all been kind of crazy, and all of a sudden, what, you're not going to get vaccinated, and what, you think this
Yeah.
is a government conspiracy, and it's
Yeah.
there's some real funny sides of humanity have come to life through
Yeah.
this.
I hear you. I really do. And here in America, it's exactly that. It's like, really? That's what you really think? I mean, seriously? So yeah. The things that we had been standing on, like religion, like science, for all these years, the idea that it's good to love your neighbor, that it's good to help people, all of those things here in America are suddenly things that people are challenging, and have challenged over the last 4 years. It's honestly been uh, a time I never could have predicted in my lifetime.
Yeah,
I thought, oh, those things happened. Yeah, they happened a long time ago, and we've learned from them. Obviously, we all know that that's not the road you go down. I don't want to get too specific, but you know exactly what I'm talking about.
yeah,
So it shows us that it comes around again, and and I believe you have to fight it. You have to fight it with everything you've got to,
absolutely. And you have to be
to
vigilant as well, because these things
yeah,
don't suddenly appear one day. They creep,
yeah, yeah,
and
exactly.
unless you keep an eye on things. I mean, again, without being too specific, but the the day when it all kicked off, I watched footage of the speech, and I just saw somebody in all black walking backwards and forwards across the stage, whilst people were, just putting punch in the air, and I just, my blood ran cold, because
Yeah,
I thought this had all gone. It just
yeah.
brought, it just brought it brought horrible, footage from the Second World War, and all of a sudden you just think, how can this be happening?
Yeah. Yeah. And how can people be
Unbelievable.
responding like this? I thought it was a fringe element of 10%, and suddenly it just swelled to, I don't know what the real percentages are, but yeah, it's just been shocking.
Yeah,
So, I mean, in a way, it's a good time to be home and sort of just like patrol your own borders, patrol your own, um, just it's a time to clean things out, to clean
yes,
yourself out, to reconnect with what you believe in, and make and prioritize what are your values, what do you believe, and then like act on them, because it creates ripples in your neighborhood, in your building, and um so just like define yourself, because you have to.
and that, Suzanne, is a really, really uplifting, and positive place to leave it. What I would like to do, if it's okay with you, if you've got a couple more minutes, I've got some subscriber questions, people who've got some
Oh,
interesting
yeah,
questions.
sure.
Would that be okay?
Yeah,
But
sure.
that was great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. My
Um,
pleasure.